For the first time in modern African history, the United Nations didn't just mention Africa, it stood with Africa. A global stage, a silent room, and a thunderous message: Africa will no longer bow. If you thought Captain Traoré was alone, think again. I now give the floor to the Secretary General of the United Nations, His Excellency Antonio Guterres. Mr. President of the General Assembly, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, 80 years ago, from the ashes of war, the world planted a seed of hope. One charter, one vision, one promise. That peace is possible when humanity stands together. The UN Charter is a declaration of hope and the foundation of international cooperation for a better world. From day one, the United Nations has been a force of construction in a world often marked by destruction, a meeting ground where the fiercest rivals can come together to solve global problems. It is an institution where the smallest are represented alongside the most powerful, a platform where voices of people everywhere can be heard, a place grounded in the principles and letter of the Charter and other rules of international law, an engine of progress for human rights, sustainable development, and humanitarian action. The Charter has given us the tools to change destinies, save lives, and deliver hope. In a moment that shook the world stage, the United Nations just did the unthinkable. For the first time in modern African history, the global body's chief secretary publicly stood in solidarity with none other than Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the revolutionary leader of Burkina Faso. World leaders sat stunned, because this wasn't just any speech. This was a thunderous message to the West. Africa is done bowing down. If you thought Traoré was alone, think again. If you're proud of the new Africa rising, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you never miss a moment of history. Today's headline: Traoré's vision just received global validation, straight from the heart of the United Nations. Let's break it down. It happened during a major UN summit in New York, where leaders from across the globe gathered to discuss international security, climate, and conflict. The room was full: U.S. diplomats, European envoys, and African presidents. Everyone expected the usual political correctness, but what came next shocked them all. As UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres took the podium, the atmosphere was tense. But instead of avoiding Africa's sovereignty crisis, he faced it head-on, quoting directly from his speech. Africa must be respected. Leaders like Captain Ibrahim Traoré represent the new generation of self-determination. The UN must support their right to build independent futures free of foreign control. Silence fell over the assembly. He wasn't just talking about development. He was defending the right of African nations to resist foreign domination. And Traoré, he was right there, nodding quietly, surrounded by African diplomats. Proud, firm, unshaken. Why is this such a big deal? Because for decades, leaders who dared to speak against Western exploitation were labeled radical, undemocratic, or even dangerous. But now, the global conversation is changing. The UN Secretary General didn't just acknowledge Traoré, he validated his mission. He called out the legacy of colonial economic structures. He praised African resilience. He demanded global respect for African sovereignty. This is monumental. Western news outlets? Silent. But African social media? Exploding. Tweets and videos praising Traoré's composure and the UN's boldness are going viral. From Dar to Nairobi, from Bamako to Ouagadougou, Africans are saying it's our time. This isn't just about Burkina Faso. It's about the entire continent stepping into its power. And the world is finally being forced to listen. Traoré stood tall. The UN stood with him. And now it's up to us, the African people, to keep pushing forward. This is history in the making. So what do you think? Should more African leaders follow Traoré's path? Is this the beginning of a new African order? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to share this video. Let's wake the world up. Welcome to Code of Lion, your premier source for news and current affairs from across the continent. We're glad you're here. If you're new to our channel, please subscribe, like, and turn on notifications to stay up to date with the latest news and analysis. Your support helps us reach more people. Disclaimer: the content of this video is based on credible, publicly available information and is intended for educational, analytical, and informational purposes only. Code of Lion does not promote hate, violence, misinformation, or political unrest. Our goal is to deliver thoughtful insights, highlight local voices, and encourage informed conversations throughout Africa. Even in the most desperate corners of the world, we can draw a direct line from the creation of the United Nations to the prevention of a third world war. Excellencies, upholding the purposes and the principles of the Charter is a never-ending mission. Over the decades, we have celebrated the end of wars while witnessing the start of others. We have delivered life-saving aid to people in desperate need while watching more humanitarian disasters unfold. We have seen progress towards denuclearization and simultaneously renewed steps toward rearmament. We have seen progression of democracy, human rights, and adherence to international law, while unfortunately also seeing a troubling trend in the opposite direction. We have rallied behind the Sustainable Development Goals and also seen growing gaps and inequalities. We have mobilized for climate action and are now enduring record heat and climate chaos. We have witnessed the breathtaking rise of digital technology and artificial intelligence, full of potential for humanity, while still working to ensure that this technology is managed responsibly and safely. Excellencies, we must continue to advance our work across all these fronts. But let's be clear. Today, we see assaults on the purposes and principles of the UN Charter like never before. The threat and use of force against sovereign nations. The violation of international law, including international humanitarian law and international human rights law. The targeting of civilians and civilian infrastructure. The weaponization of food and water. The erosion of human rights. Over and over again, we see a familiar pattern. Follow the Charter when it suits. Ignore it when it does not. But the Charter of the United Nations is not optional. It is not an a la carte menu. It is the bedrock of international relations. We cannot and must not normalize violations of its most basic principles. Excellencies, today, more than ever, we must respect and renew our commitment to international law, in word and in deed, to adapt to an increasingly multipolar and digital world, to address global shocks with unity and determination, to open our doors wide to civil society, youth, and the private sector, and to rethink the way we act by building stronger, renewed, inclusive multilateralism, a multilateralism that is adapted to the 21st century. In September, member states adopted the Pact for the Future, reaffirming the world's commitment to international law and the UN Charter. On this anniversary, I invite all member states to live up to the spirit and the letter of the Charter, to the responsibilities it confers upon us, and the future it calls us to build, for peace, for justice, for progress, for we the peoples. Thank you. I thank the Secretary General of the United Nations. I now give the floor to our Excellency,